One of my first memories is being dolled up one night in a miniature rabbit fur chubby coat made by my abuela, my mother's mother, whom we called Mama. She was an elegant, square-faced, handsome Dominican woman who kept her deep black straight hair in a short chic cut, never leaving the house without red lipstick. She worked in Midtown Manhattan as a seamstress for Oscar de la Renta, the suave, perpetually tan Dominican-American fashion designer with a legacy of dressing first ladies, starting with Jackie Kennedy, and who filled his workshops with immigrant women from his home country. Abuela dressed for work every day in a smart, tailored navy or black Oscar skirt suit and a starched white or cream-collared blouse. She was divine to me. My chubby coat was calico. In color, it was uneven. There were variations in the length of the fur pieces, all shades of brown from light to dark, patchy like a calico cat. It was sewn of remnants from Mama's salon, a manufacturing loft filled with her fellow countrywomen, who were most likely also various shades of brown and black, speaking to the island's history of enslavement and colonialism as old as Columbus's first landing. I couldn't have been more than 3, almost 4 years old that night, but what I remember most was the feel of that fur, the absolute luxe of it, unspoiled by any knowledge of the carnage that happened to put it on my back. And I remember that in wearing that coat, along with my fancy lace-up go-go boots, an emerald green velvet evening purse, also custom-made for me with a rabbit's fluffy gray tail smack in the middle of the clasp, I felt like the most loved and special thing. I remember it so well because it was a feeling that was rare and would be gone from my life all too soon. I was dressed up to go out with my older brother, Alexander, Alex to everyone except our parents, to Chinatown with our father, Peter Papi Wong. He was coming to pick us up from our apartment in Morningside Heights, which at the time, the 1970s, was Harlem. My brother and I lived alone with our young mother, Lupe, a firstborn child in her father's second family. My grandfather, Abuelo, had 2 families, one with his wife, who was somewhere else in New York City at the time, and one with his longtime, let's call her partner, my grandmother, Mama. It was decades before I'd find out that this was typical of Dominican culture back then, and it's handed down still a bit today. For a man to have a wife, never divorce, but have another family, or more, and even live with this other family, like my grandfather did. Of course, this was never spoken of, and I didn't meet anyone from Abuelo's other legitimate family, our family, until nearly 30 years later. Ay, mija, qué linda eres, Abuela said to me as she bent down to put the hook into the eye at the top of my coat. She would say this phrase to me like a mantra, that night and every day that I was lucky enough to see her. Qué linda. Her greeting to me was always this, and what I heard was, oh, my child, how lovely you are. It could never have been said to me enough. But it wasn't about my appearance. When Mama held my face in her hands, she looked into my being and told me, that I was worthwhile, even with all she could see inside me, just as I was, and as all I was to be. No one before or since has done the same. But at 3 or 4, the prime years in which we shape and form ourselves, our personalities, and our programming, that was all I needed to build a foundation for the adventure and struggle that was to be the rest of my life. I hear my abuela's voice so clearly in my memories, but I find it a bit strange that I don't remember my mother's voice at all before the age of maybe 5 or 6. Her silence, or my perception of it, is a striking impression from my childhood. I can see her clearly, though. I saw my mother, Mommy, Lupe, that night at the end of the narrow and dimly lit railroad apartment hallway, holding open the door for my brother and me. Both of us kids all gussied up and fresh and clean for a night out on the town with our Chinese father, who didn't live with us. Papi and Mommy were still married, but separated. Abuela had kissed me on the cheek and turned me around to follow Alex down the hall to the door. My jaunty boots clip-clopped on the linoleum. Mommy held the door open to Papi, but didn't let him in. He was a bit thin then and small, maybe 5'5", looking like an Asian Johnny Cash, dressed all in black, a slick fitted jacket, more biker than suit. Hair brill creamed back into a low, shiny black pompadour.